Welcome, everyone. This is the Bernhard Neumann podcast, and in this podcast, we interview leaders, experts in the field of Web3, AI, and all the interesting stuff. And today, I have a very special guest here. It's my good friend Ben Desai. And Ben is an extremely creative person. I got to work with him for many years, and you have one of the most beautiful minds that I know. I remember our time when we just exchanged idea and got excited every day to what do you think? What can we just come up with? And we have so many unused business ideas or content ideas. And you've been on that path for a long time. Back then when I worked with you, you were innovation manager. And so I'm really excited to your journey to where you now. You call yourself an XR content creator, and you help many businesses be innovative. And of course, that's just a term. So we will want to know what that actually means. And so without further ado, welcome Ben Desai.
Thank you, Bernie, for having me today.
Very cool. So first of all, maybe to clear things up. Who are you and what do you do? What's an XR content creator?
Okay, well, I'm Ben and I'm an XR content creator, and that is an umbrella term, XR, for using all these technologies, AR, VR, and mixed reality. And I use them in different ways. So I spend a lot of time in virtual reality, and I use that to both create content and also create 3D models. That's my favorite thing to do in VR, is to sculpt and to model. And then I'll use those for things like my AR filter. So I'll actually build the assets and then create AR experiences.
Very cool. That's a really unexpected. I don't have this on my questions here, but since you mentioned it, VR. So you've been there all along, basically. I remember this is 7-8 years ago. You built a VR experience for some big clients, for some banks. What's it been like? You've been there all the time. So what's the journey? Where are we now? Is this happening soon? Are you just waiting for Apple to say, here it is?
Partly, right? There's so much anticipation. I'm curious when this podcast goes out because on June 5th is a big announcement from them. It's been quite secretive. Of course, many people are looking to that to be a game changer. In the past, many times, including with AR technology, when Apple has done it and when they've brought that into their ecosystem, they've not just done it in a, let's say, easy to use way, in a way that works well with the developers in order to make that able for mass adoption, but they've also often given people and other companies and investors that kind of confidence. Okay, Apple's doing it, so now it's time for this to take off. Sometimes that's been a surprise, sometimes that's been a technology that's kind of been there. And I think this is going to make a big difference. You have them coming at the really high price point, that probably $3,000 per headset price point, and then you have just, I believe it was yesterday, the Oculus Quest 3 came out. That's going to be on the lower end. I think that's around, let's say it's around $500. It's a smaller, right? We're always talking about with VR for years. It's always been like mass adoption is going to happen when these things are easily available, when they're lighter, easier to use, just more comfortable, and when there's like the killer app, or when there's more things to do on it and things to do that people love to do. And I mean, just from what I've seen, that announcement, it is much lighter and it's much thinner already. So that's what Meta's coming up with. So we have two things coming out within, let's say, a week of each other, and we're going to see how that kind of changes.
Coincidence, question mark, do you think?
No, I think it's also smarter, right, for Meta to announce it right before, kind of get that hype, because if you have some game-changing or big thing coming from Apple, and then you try to come in with like, "Hey, we're the cheaper one." I think it was.
We did this little thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's really good, but it makes sense to kind of sneak it in before that.
So my Quest 2 is lying back there actually. Used it probably 7 times.
Yeah.
So maybe. How has this progression been for you? What's the journey, if you walk us through the years and how you've used VR and where we are now? Like back then, like what was it like, or like you don't have to go into detail, but more interesting how you use it now, where we are now.
I think the most fun thing in the beginning was this experience of, like, the experiences didn't even need to be that crazy. I remember I've done so many introduction kind of, what do you want to call it? Not tests. I've introduced people to it, and also like in an office or a workshop environment. And even the first headsets that we had and company, this is already so many years ago, we brought people in and we just had them doing the intro demo, and it was really like there's a balloon in the air and you smack the balloon.
Oh, okay.
And the fact that you get the haptic, you get the sound that it makes, people were just having the best time, even though it was such a simple thing, but it was so well done and it was so realistic. And I think that, as the first experiences when you had very low expectations or had never tried something like that before, that alone, like, wow, I am in this world, wow, this feels real, right? Those were kind of the first things. Then games became very fun, to like soon after that, like I'm somewhere else and I'm having a very realistic experience. I'm very transported into something. You could really see the potential of this. Like you think down the line, like, wow, this will really transport you into an experience that could be used for immersive gaming or immersive brand experience. There's so many things you could do with that.
Let me ask you that. So we've always seen the potential. We just never really got there. You mentioned already, okay, headset needs to be lighter, cheaper, all this.
And first they had those cables. That was already like, right?
I remember you with those cables.
Yeah, and that alone just to set up, right? Like I'm good with this stuff. That's a pain. That was a pain. I had to, I just moved and I took those cables that I had, put very nicely onto the wall, ripped off half the wall getting those cable things off. And I think, but when they switched to the wireless version, that already made such a big difference.
And now you build beautiful 3D models. And why do you build them in VR? What's cool about it?
Okay, so first of all, it's fun. Second of all, I always think back to my first time getting into, on the PC, a 3D modeling program. You open that thing up and it's scary because there's so many windows, so much information. If you have no experience with that, you're like, whoa, like, it's off-putting. Versus the first time, right now, if I put you in a VR 3D modeling experience, even if you don't know everything yet, through the fact that it's natural gestures and movements, I can get you building things within minutes. Versus, I think you open a PC, because that's the difference between you're trying to do something 3D on a 2D screen, right? A 2D environment. And if you're in VR, you're at least, again, in the 3D space from the get-go. If you make a cube, maybe this motion doesn't mean anything, but as soon as we were in there and you go like this, I'm like, oh, I understand. I am creating both height and depth at the same time if I make the cube. It's a natural thing. And just like if you were playing with clay, that's sculpting versus modeling, the slight differences there, but things make sense to you right away, right? You'd be more, and it's bringing those natural elements into it. That alone, right? But now it's just faster through all of that, through the fact that I don't have to even move my model around. I can even move my head to see above the model, below the model. I move so quickly that I do, let's say, 80% of my modeling in VR. It's the first 80%, and it's easily twice as fast to get to that point. And then I'll do the
That's so interesting. So workflow is you start off in VR and then you finish off maybe on the computer.
Yeah, exactly. For texture, for things that aren't currently possible in, or the way that I want them to be currently in VR, I will do that, or maybe I'll clean something up. But yeah, exactly. I'd say it's like an 80-20 rule right now.
And what are those models being used for? What do you do with clients there? What can we then see on the internet?
Sure. So one of my clients is Cyber Brokers, and I'm the head of creative innovation over there.
The head of creative
innovation.
Did you pick that title?
I didn't. Right? You would think so.
You didn't know?
It was such a beautiful title, but I didn't pick that title. But they have, NFTs. I should check them out if you don't know them. But they have these beautiful, beautiful art NFTs. Everything is 2D for the first Cyber Brokers series. They have all this cool fashion. That's a good example. And we were starting to create some of these things, like let's say they have VR headsets, goggles, hats, and we started making AR filters out of them. But of course, if it's a 2D asset, we don't have the 3D. I brought that in as a reference. I had my I had the actual NFT in there with me, or an image of the NFT, I mean, and then I would build that. I would build the hat, I'd build the glasses, I'd build those things in VR very quickly, and then bring that asset that I now have as 3D and bring it into an AR program and create an AR filter out of it. That's one example how I go from VR to AR.
And so, yeah, in general, like you making this everything 3D because of the metaverse, or because that's how we actually start to interact online and how you can better consume things online, or?
Sure, in terms of AR filters, it's better to, that's how you get yourself into it, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole face filter thing. That's how I'm part of it. So if as a brand you create an AR filter, when that makes sense, it does many different directions, many different ways to do that. But now your audience is spending time with your brand. They're electing to actually, in their, maybe even their own home, on their own face. That's of course a great relationship. And yeah, so that's part of it, that alone. And then of course with the metaverse, I mean, we're getting to the point where there's so many digital experiences for brands, there's so many digital platforms. It also makes sense as a brand to have your assets in 3D so you can quickly bring them over. It's like before we had a bunch of photos, we have Facebook, hey, let's bring our photos, let's put them on Facebook. That works. Now we're saying, okay, there's so many places to bring in our 3D assets. Do we have those? If you do, import them in, bring them in.
Is there kind of a standard or something where it's kind of easy to bring them from one place to the other?
Yes, in terms of if it's just a 3D object, I'd say it works. If it's an animated thing, if it's if it's an avatar, rigged avatar, there are standards for that as well. Yes, but then it gets a little like, I feel like we're tweaking a lot to get to get it just right for every platform.
Yeah, so if we jump to AR for a second, so VR, virtual reality, now augmented reality, I think it's fair to say that you're one of the experts, like kind of even out there, like in the entire world, who knows? You have so much experience when we worked together and everything. I guess I'm not the target group or anything, but what are those things being used for? Why is it exciting? And do you have also some, is it working for companies that use it?
Yeah, there's crazy statistics about that also, how it even, how it supports sales when companies bring that into kind of that testing. I mean, online shopping, right? That's bigger, that's taking over. There's so much of that happening.
True, yeah.
And then you have that whole, what is one reason you don't want to do online shopping, right? Is this exactly what I need? Am I going to like it, or do I have to send it back? Because no one wants to send it back. Even though, Amazon, for instance, makes that part so easy. They make that promise like, hey, just order it, you can always send it back. But in the end, we still don't like to do that, right? That extra, you got to print out, you got to pack it up again, you got to take it back. And AR in a lot of segments can make that part easier for you. Yeah. IKEA was a first mover with that when it wasn't even gonna work 100%. But if you use an AR experience with a phone that has a LiDAR, which many do, you can actually we'll stick with the IKEA example. You're gonna buy something online that might go into your room. You can pop that into the area of the room at scale. So right away you're like, now I can see what that actually looks like. And especially with things like furniture, that's big. I'm skipping ahead. I'm just going to jump into the future. One place that doesn't work is with clothes, right?
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Wasn't that always the promise kind of thing?
I think we are going to get there. That's going to happen. Yeah. That's an exciting next step because digital fashion is already a thing. It is a big market right now. There's so much happening in that, but it's more, it's not necessarily super connected to sales right now of that real product. It has its own kind of world. It's for your avatar or for you to see yourself in this amazing, maybe not possible in real life outfit, right? That's where it kind of has its USP right now. But imagine being able to try on clothes in their actual fit, dependent on what your actual size is. So you could see yourself, oh, this is what I would look like in a size L, this is what I'd look in a size M, and kind of see the difference. And that could also, I think we're going to get to the point, like with all this AI tech and coming into that, where it can kind of scan okay, well, this is your from shoulder to shoulder, this is that, and then apply those sizes to kind of really get a more closer understanding of how those fits will.
Yeah, so you're not talking about digital clothing like you buy an NFT and then it's your digital clothing something.
That's right now, right? Like that's big right now. But I'm saying, okay, this is the
and so it's not that you like go around like this with a filter, but you maybe have your avatar, your scan of you in that app, and then you just close it and just
that's one way for sure, right? Because like these scan yourself apps, there are so many of them. There are free ones that just takes under a minute to do. I mean, definitely that, and I think that's actually even probably one step easier solution to what I just said, which
fast,
is
right?
For sure. But what I'm talking about is just selfie mode and see. And I've seen really cool experiences where clothing, let's say clothing brands put those magic mirror type things in their window, and you can walk by and see yourself in the clothes. And that's fun also now to get like an idea like, oh, this is the kind of fashion that might be available in the store. But I'm talking really like, okay, based on your measurements, this is the size, without doing a scan even. That's like a 3D scan.
What's something fun you would like to do with a client or by yourself with AR filters? What's something on your mind here?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Because there's so many things I want to do, right?
Okay.
I think a lot of times clients approach me with something they've seen, right? So they'll say, oh, this company did this, or our competitor did this, or I've seen that you tried this out. And then they come to me and want exactly that, right? That's often how it is. We see it, it's kind of like shopping in the business world for marketing.
Okay.
I would love to kind of really, client approaches me, says, okay, this is our problem and this is our product, and let's come up together with the best solution for that. Like, how can our client get the most out of that, really experience the product? So yeah, that's going to be my answer, because it's more of a journey, because I come from a UX background, right? And I want to bring that user experience like research into it. I think that would be cool, that project.
To close this topic off, because we've got so many more, what's an AR experience that you like to show people, or that you really enjoy, that you use as a best practice?
I've done some, okay, I'm just gonna push myself here. I've done some cool ones for cyber brokers recently that I really like. So I have, they came out with 3D mechs as their newest NFT. So it's a fully 3D and fully rigged model that you get if you get the NFT. And for those, I created filters where it does full body replacement with the mech. So you can like film someone else or film yourself, and then you are the mech, and everything that was your body is completely gone and even removed.
Those AI videos.
Yes,
where you
true.
Exchange the person for the robot.
Exactly, yeah. So I was doing that even before those came out, which was very cool.
Snap.
No, so those I really like, because I think it's such an impressive technology, and it makes sense, right? Something like that really makes sense, because like now I am the NFT, now I am the mech. My favorite are actually target filters. So you point it at something, and then you get additional information about this thing, product, logo, whatever it is. Or so it's information, or it's entertainment, or I like those a lot, because I think that's the most magical thing, to kind of take a physical object, for instance, and through the magic of technology, it's enhanced. And it's right now, those are good experiences. We hold our phone to it, but I'm excited for that next step, like what's happening, let's say with Apple's new, let's say, AR glasses, for instance, or it doesn't matter. This is happening in the future. We are wearing them on our face, and it is much more natural, just way I look at it and I experience it. I don't even have to hold the phone. So yeah, those are.
Yeah, there's so many more questions, but let's switch a little bit. Actually, not. So I guess the big topic, obviously, of our time right now is AI. And I would love to understand how you approached it, how you got into it. you now use, we've talked before, you use AI in your workflow every day. Yeah, how did you get started on AI? What's your view on it, and how do you use it, I guess?
Okay, so I got started. I was interested in it for a long time through the promise of it, and I've even was like doing a lot of kind of like futuristic predictions of what was going to happen, and it's crazy even because I even told you stories of like, oh, in 15 years something like this is going to happen, and then I think in the end we're coming up on like 5-6 years because of how quickly even in just in the last year AI has progressed and evolved like exponentially. Okay, but OpenAI, I saw the year before DALL-E 2 came out, I saw the DALL-E 1 things, the results of what, people typing something in and what came out of it.
So
I said,
DALL-E is the image generator?
in an image, text-to-image generator,
Text-to-image
yes.
generator.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
And I always just dive right into it, right?
Go.
No, very good. And then what happened is I looked at those and I said, wow, this is pretty good. I bet in a like 5 years this will be nice. And then the next year DALL-E 2 came out, and that was I think that's where everything changed. Like from DALL-E 2 coming out, everyone got very AI hyped, and I was so mesmerized, and I just wanted access to it so badly. And I was on the the waiting list like many people for so long, and I started trying out other apps that did this very similar, and the quality wasn't as good right away, and I already started experimenting with it. I took images, like still images, and I had them altered, for instance, by AI, because you could do like image plus text, get another AI image. And I was creating like little video snippets, and I was even made an AR filter with that. So with my own, I put in a mask, and I was having it be all cybernetically and enhanced, and it was creating kind of this like moving video, and I made an AR filter out of that. And and then I used that to kind of like, I was in contact with someone from OpenAI, and I said, hey, I'm already working with this with AI technology, with AR, and then I got access to it, and then that changed everything. I couldn't stop. I think the first couple nights where I had access to it, I couldn't stop. I was just sitting there, and before one idea was done, I already had the next idea, and then I started using that as references for creating the 3D models of these 2D images for AR filters. And
I can totally imagine your mind just exploding with possibility. Is it really that, like where we are also right now, that like you always had all those beautiful ideas in your head, and you already found ways to get them into reality with VR, 3D modeling and everything? How has AI enhanced that even for you?
I think if you looked at my workflow of what it was, like have an idea, sketch that idea, okay, now make the assets for idea, okay, and like me, there were so many ideas sometimes I wasn't even fast enough to kind of take that idea where I wanted to, because I was already working on another idea for personal stuff, of course, but for work you have to get it done. But it just sped up that process. I was doing so much sketching on the iPad, and I love art and I love drawing and I love sketching, but it has been replaced right now with AI.
I remember you for a presentation, like you would do those beautiful sketches, and it would take quite a long time. Obviously they had to be beautiful. We use it in a big pitch or something. Now it's like
it's that. And that replaced in my own personal, even my own ideas, even because I was so many ideas, I sketch that out. And now I'd be like, okay, let's come at this from a couple different angles generated by AI, and then maybe make the final version and take that as an asset, or take that as a UI element, or for assets. So basically, I became, for my own projects, the kind of creative director, and the AI is being used as the
Oh yeah, okay, so before you had to fill
all these kind of roles,
maybe?
and as you mentioned, to do something that looks nice, that takes time.
Yeah.
And now I'm up here, I'm generating,
Yeah, the way you talk about it, I can totally see that it makes you more creative. I have to say, like, and also people are, I don't know, in fear, but like that it makes you less creative because you type in and you actually, and I myself, you know, like, oh, I could come up with some ideas, or I could ask
Have it.
ChatGPT. How do you think about that?
Yeah, it's, you know how we as humans make things so easy for ourselves sometimes that we then are become lazy about it. It's the thing where, is that what you wanted, the easy solution, or for me, because I have this drive of like essentially infinite ideas, and those are coming anyway, this just makes more of those, I guess, realizable. I can, yeah, bring more of them to life, which is the need that I have. So I think if you are passionate about the idea, it empowers you to do it. If it's just something that you need to get done, which is how I feel about something like taxes. I'm excited for a tax.
Me too.
Yeah, for a tax solution, a tax program to integrate those type of technologies in it, to make the things that I like, anything that kind of paperwork or organizational work, more automated. That's what I'm excited about, so that I can spend more of the time and effort, and even part of that effort is, you know, supplemented by AI to go farther with those projects to a quality that's higher with those projects that I would have done before.
To be a bit more concrete, like I would love you to walk us through like maybe a project or your workflow of using AI and how you get work done, so we can really picture it, and like I just want to grab it.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
How is that actually working? So you can pick any example.
Let's go with my most recent one, the
Yes,
one that I'm
okay.
working on right now with cyber brokers, is that we're a small team and we have the opportunity to be very creative and to push the boundaries of both technology and the envelope, and be kind of crazy sometimes. And yeah, basically what we are working on right now is doing the first AI takeover of a marketing department. So I was working with GPT for a plan where an AI will take over the marketing department. I feed it with what our goals are. I feed it with the analytics that we actually get from social media, and it kind of continues to adapt. Okay.
Let's be even more detailed. You have ChatGPT, and I guess so. There's like we all know this. Like there's this text field, and so now you give information to this.
Yeah.
So you have one tab.
Exactly.
Right?
I have one tab that's just for this.
Yeah, just for this. That's your marketing.
AI head of marketing
AI
at
head
Cyber
of
Brokers.
marketing. Okay, and then you feed this one tab
information about the company, information about what we're doing, or we worked, the ChatGPT and I worked together to work on that goal. But yes, exactly, on what the goal is, on any sort of analytics that makes sense to feed back into it. Yeah, and that conversation does a pretty good job of staying on point. Sure, I have to correct, there's still a lot of human intervention at this point. But yeah, that's the thing. And then the idea was to give this AI that's going to be the head a persona, which we based off of a Cyber Brokers NFT. The script writing from a first-person perspective from that character is written entirely by the AI. I'll just give some kind of directions sometimes, but the whole strategy of like day by day what we're gonna do was also created by it, where I had very little to say. We're letting it run wild. This is an experiment. This is yeah, very interesting. And then I'll bring in, you can stop me, we can go back, but then I'll bring in other AIs that animate it, that do the text, from the script, the text to voice, to speech, and we bring those in, and then I'm combining those into a video, and then bringing in, you know, images, also using Midjourney for some of the images. Most of them we have actually, and I'll use screen records of the AI giving me the outputs, and I put all of that into a video.
How do you think about using and finding all those different AI tools? Like in my mind, it's always, I'm skeptical, because how good can they be if they don't have GPT, you know, underneath
Yeah.
them or something? Like, what's your thinking
Oh, I'm
there?
super skeptical about them. I test out so many different things, and I keep the ones that I like. So I used GPT-4 for that main, let's say, brainstorming scripts, strategy. A lot of the tech stuff, I'm just using that. And then but as you know, GPT is not, can't really do text to voice right now, right? So then I had to go somewhere else. But I went to somewhere, 11 Labs, that's very good at doing exactly that. So then I'll use that for this part. Then I found, I've tried different kind of like ones that animate an image, for instance. So you have, the one I ended up going with right now is DID. And there I upload, it can also do text to voice, but I use the one from 11 Labs. So I take that, upload that there, upload the image of that NFT character, and then it just combines them together, and it does that part well. So I'm using three different, from what I've mentioned so far, three different tools that all do their job well, and that one of them even mixes the job of the other two well, and that's where I'm at. And that is honestly, because I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that is the tricky part right now. There's all these promises, and there's all these different companies doing stuff, but often when exactly, like there's big promises, and maybe you try them out, and you don't like the output that it's doing, because it isn't based on one of the more powerful models. Yeah.
Totally. Like I also like I sometimes in my workflows I use Google Bard and then feed it to ChatGPT and like it's all this weird thing. Actually, it's a good way because Google Bard. Have you used it?
Yeah.
It's not as smart as ChatGPT.
Yet I keep seeing tweets. I keep seeing all these people saying how it's better, and then that makes me go, because I'm using it every couple of days, and I'm also doing. Sometimes I test like really like side by side, and then I'll see another one of those tweets, and I'm like, all right, let's try it again, and I'm disappointed in my answer. It's really like GPT is like acting like an assistant, like really. There's a conversation that I can have back and forth until I get what I want. And with Bard, it feels like something different. I don't know.
It's better Googling to me. It's
better
like
Googling.
Just next level Googling, but it has nothing to do with what ChatGPT does, in my opinion. But that's aside the point. So that's really interesting. So. Yeah, you said up front that you also think like AI like pushes you to like many people to work as a solo business because you can do so many things at the same time. So how does AI kind of revolutionize your field of user experience of AR, VR and all this?
Even before the AI stuff, I was already getting there, right? I was like really taking from my experience as originally graphic designer, then in UX, then everything as an innovation manager. I mean, everything fell into that, including working with AR. But I realized, okay, my skill set is also being able to do so many things, have an understanding of these different technologies, and sometimes be, the big communicator between, if I'm working with a team. So I can speak in kind of the design language, I can speak in the video editing language and bring that together. But even though I could do that, so much of it, for the project size maybe, or for the speed of it, I was still, or maybe it's just because of my ego, I was doing all of those steps myself. And now when then AI came out to this level that it is now, where I can use it for GPT and also art and I mean, there's even ones that I've experimented with for going from, let's say, image to 3D. 3D modeling will be replaced at one point. It's empowered me from where I was doing all the steps to now I have feels like a whole team at my fingertips to do all this, and it's just made me better and faster. And I've been always excited about, that was kind of always my thing. How can I, even before with video editing and using apps and finding plugins and this and that, how can I be faster? How can I be better? And that's why it was so natural to take these AI tools and just like weave them into my workflow. Anyway, I was just doing that naturally, and now I'm at a point where I'm very happy with the output.
love how you're phrasing it. You know, you see it as an opportunity to be more productive, to create more. Many people see it as a threat. So I wanted to ask you, also for the people out there understanding. So you're really deep into, you know, how graphical design is done at agencies, at companies. That's just your business. And so I'm asking you, how do you see AI replacing people there? Like, hey, we don't need the fifth graphical designer. Or what's your view on that?
Yeah, I've told people that graphic designers that I used to work with on the early side of this, even maybe when I just got my hands on DALL-E 2 for the first moment, and I said, integrate this, like be on top of this. This would either, I think you said it well, the company might look and said, we might not need this extra asset. Instead, the assets that we have, these designers that we have, we pick ones that do use these tools. Therefore, they are more efficient, they're better, and they know this technical landscape better. And I essentially saying, be one of those people. And that's especially because I have this one designer I was working with, quite young, like 22. I said, you have no excuse. You have to adopt this right now and be the best. Be the best at utilizing these tools.
And how do you get good at utilizing this?
By using them, by testing. I mean, especially if you will use graphic design. You're a graphic designer. You create your own assets. You modify assets, and you go to stock sites to get assets and implement them. Each thing I've just said, you can use one of these AI tools to do, and therefore you should experiment with doing that and understand how it can help you, how does it make you faster. I was using DALL-E 2 to edit images because you can like erase and do that. And now, when was this? 2 weeks ago, Adobe's Photoshop integrated it and brought that into their workflow. And it's not necessarily super new. Like this, this we've seen in these other AI tools, but the fact that it's in Photoshop, it honestly is saving that step between kind of messing around with something here. I was doing a lot of back and forth, right? For some projects that I was doing, I did this big project for OpenAI directly, where we were working with various art, so the masters of art. We were working with the Mona Lisa, we were working with the girl with the pearl earring, and we were expanding those paintings. So just kind of for fun, like what was behind them, what was to the left, right, making the whole scene. And I was working on the kind of the production side of that project. We made a filter, and we were working with different artists, and it was a lot of back and forth, right? It was like you're going between we were in DALL-E 2 and the AI tool, then Photoshop, then kind of a little bit of back and forth. And now with what Photoshop integrated, it's just that saves you a step. It puts, and that tool is more powerful because Photoshop is more powerful, and you can, that level of workflow speed level up is, again, super exciting.
Really cool. I've been using it. It has crashed my computer twice.
True, it is beta. Yeah.
How do you stay on top of all of this AI stuff? That's what I find difficult. You know, like there's just this explosion, and this new tool is supposed to be the best this, and now you need this, and it actually, like, even the tools you're using evolve so much. Like, how do you personally stay on top of that?
I think it's one of the toughest things now. At first, I'll say how I was, and then this is the way I still am, but it's just become difficult because the amount that is happening in this space. But basically, the accounts that I follow, my own interests is and kind of searching and looking those things up. And lucky for me, I'm in some kind of exclusive AI groups because I've been working with this, and then I was invited into those Instagram DM groups and some Slack groups, and there are Discord groups, and there's a lot of information being shared there. There's a lot of the people that are sharing the information are there directly. There's great conversations happening there, so I feel like I am always on top of it. But I myself had thought this is to the point where it's hard to catch up with. There is essentially a new AI breakthrough happening daily. And then I was feeling this way, and so many other people, that those conversations started happening all the time. People said, I'm overwhelmed by this. I can't even keep up with this. How are you supposed to even test that tool and get that into your workflow if it's just here, there, another one, another breakthrough? And I feel like that hasn't happened before.
No, for sure.
Because, yeah.
Sorry for interrupting. Do you have a framework where you say, like, for example, as I mentioned before, okay, if it's based on GPT, I'm going to follow it more because I like that model. I know it's good. Like, do you have a framework where you like filter out, okay, what are they going to do? There are two people sitting in their basement with no servers, or like, how is that going to be a good AI tool?
Yeah, I'm a little like that. If it's coming from something I've heard of or I've already liked, of course, I pay more attention to that. I want to try it out right away. I put more interest into exploring it. And I think it's just rightly so, because I think so many companies that know that if I say AI and I say those things, I'm going to get investors. And I'm sure that works, but you don't always have necessarily the best products coming out from a team, from every team. Let's just say it that way. So yes, so like you said, I'm kind of skeptical about it, but at the same time, then there'll be companies that you haven't heard of before, and they'll just come out with, they might not even be small, but you've never heard about them before, and they just come out with something explosive, like right out the gate, like Wonder Dynamics, which is the one that does the real time. You can upload any video of where there's people in it, and then on their web platform, you just drag one of their models or your own model onto that person and the robot thing. But there's not just robots, right? But there's a lot of robot videos.
Tom Cruise also.
Yeah, and people have done, because that's the thing. It wasn't even like, it has to be your video or done the specific way. People are taking clips from movies, from anything. I just saw yesterday on their actual site, they were sharing there's slap competitions where people slap each other, and then they just replaced one of them with a robot, and then that caused even confusion because some people on Twitter saw that video and thought someone put a robot into one of those competitions. And just the quality from out the gate, the quality is so good. In some videos, you do not even see anything. On some videos, you see that the background is there's some artifacts, there's a little blur where it is trying to replace this character. But I mean, something like that came out of just nowhere and is incredible. So, yeah.
What are you excited about for the coming weeks to use AI for? Like, what's on your mind here? What do you want to try out? What do you want to do? Just the next few weeks, because we can't look much further, right?
Yeah, that's true. I'm always, so I don't code myself, and I feel like every week I'm always testing, like, where are we at now? Where is Bard at? Where is GPT at? Can it do this task for me? And we're still at a point where, like, for instance, I speak German and English, so if I have it do a translation for me, I can still check either one of those languages to see, okay, this is still correct. But because I don't understand JavaScript, for example, I can't check if that's right, and I plug it in, and if it doesn't work, I don't know where it went wrong. And I'd say that's still where I'm very excited for the opportunity to be able to level up my one person company solopreneur AR game through coding.
What would you be coding?
I just want to do things that kind of push, let's say, the AR platform to the limits. Because basically the sky's the limit if you can code more of your actual want of what you want an object to do, or how it applies to the face or the space that you're in. It's just
fancier, more reactive.
Let's say more reactive. For instance, there was a couple, was it months ago? I think it was a couple months ago, and a TikTok filter went viral because it really...
Oh yeah, I saw
you saw that one. Really changed the face. And I looked at that and went, wow, okay, so now, sure, it was like AI related, but I thought, this is really stepping up the game of what goes into an AR filter. And of course, the whole time I've been, lurking, I've been thinking, okay, when can can GPT be my coder, yeah, my developer. So yeah.
I love this. This is the perfect transition, probably. So it seems that everything is kind of interrelated. You have VR, AI, you have AR, AI, you have VR and AR, everything here. Many people in the Web3 space, they always want to bring AI and Web3 together. Like
Yeah.
they think it needs to go together. I'm not so sure. Like, how do you think about it? Like, how does Web3 play into all this, what we've been talking about today?
How does AI play into Web3? How does
Web3 play into AI, VR, AR, and all these things that seem to be very interrelated?
For AR and VR, but I'll start with AR. I think it does make a lot of sense with digital try-on. That whole level of when there's an NFT connected to it, when I want to buy something, purchasing, I think there's ways that can make sense, like integrating more AR into Web3 platforms that are more open, that are more native. My favorite ones to use for AR are social platforms because you're going to get the best reach, a lot of reasons, but of course the limitations are you can't click out of them, right? So you're in an AR filter. Of course, the social platforms want to keep you on their platform. I can't click out to buy. So even if we say we made a great experience for a glasses company, you can really see what those glasses will look like on you on their Instagram page. You still can't necessarily click out right now to go buy that. And let's say it's just not as open, it's not as interoperable.
And I think what you mentioned is this digital twin kind of thing, right? That's really interesting, and I think I never thought of, like, that makes total sense with AR also, trying on your clothes, getting the digital twin, getting the clothing yourself. Obviously you want to wear it. Where else do you see those technologies having an intersection with Web3? Like maybe AI or VR, as you mentioned?
I see right now AI more like on the back end, kind of on the things you don't see to improve and, let's say, make even the user interfaces better and just everything easier. And that's going to be, I think the whole stuff before ChatGPT and before DALL-E, AI has been being worked on and being used in so many ways before that, but it was on the quieter back end, less sexy, less in your face, less you can touch, you can interact with it. Big scale stuff was happening, and because it didn't just come out of nowhere. And I think that's makes sense right now for Web3, right, on the back end. But otherwise, like there's these examples where, see if you see this connection here, but even what Zuckerberg was experimenting with in some kind of like, not a vision video, but like a test video that he showed where you were in this VR world, and instead of building it with the tools, because you have to learn those tools and not everyone knows that or wants to do that, it was just like he was speaking to the system, like, put us on a beach, at a cabin, and it is just, this is listening and just adding these things into that space. And I think for world building and for even something like making a website, that's on the, of course, like on the user interface side, just makes things easier. But I could imagine a lot of, in that way, can be brought into Web3 experiences.
Assets.
Creating any digital assets, and in those ways it just makes sense. But I don't know if it's like this explosion of like, this will be brand new and we haven't seen it and no one thought of this before. But I think it makes sense to bring AI into almost everything.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. So like, I think it's hard to argue. I mean, there's some arguments that AI needs Web3, and I'm not sure, like there's maybe verifying messages. I get it, like verifying stuff, that makes a lot of sense to me. But yeah, it's a really interesting perspective you showed how all of these things intersect. Like, it's really interesting. Like, it's all coming together, and I love how you just make it more, like make it bigger. Like it's not like, what I sense from you is just, let's use it and make beautiful things with it, instead of worrying about what's it gonna do with jobs or anything. Like that's nothing you can control. It's gonna happen anyway.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll think, oh, like I worry about that. I think like, oh, that's crazy, or the fact that all these the predictions about how many jobs are going to be replaced by it, or the hiring stop of 8,000 people at IBM, and those are all related to AI. And there's so many stories like that. And of course I'm like, oh, that sucks, but it's also, this is the new technology. Like, this is happening, and we need to adapt ourselves to work with AI, first of all. Like, that's very important. And also, as a society, then decide how we kind of regulate, how we control that, how we fix those parts that we don't like. But bringing AI into our lives can be an amazing, positive thing. So, yeah.
Oh, God, I would love to talk so much more. We need to round this. We used to always look in the future.
Yes.
And we were actually pretty good at it.
We were good at it.
To be honest, to give ourselves a little pat on the back here, not too shabby. What do you see here? Like, just what comes to mind? We have Apple bringing out VR glasses. Maybe there's AR glasses. Who knows? Like, what do you see in the next couple of years that excites you, that you would love to see happening in terms of those technologies we just talked about?
That one's been the most toughest thing for me currently. Every once in a while I'm like, this is, like, this shoots off in that level, but through it's almost as if I've been
outpaced?
It's been demotivating for me to see ideas that I've thought like, oh, this will be here in 5 years, and I've literally seen it around the corner.
It's that crazy.
Yeah, it's been that crazy. But we've talked about this idea, so I will say this one because it's not 100% here yet. We talked about this idea years ago, where I said, oh, in the future through AI, you're going to be able to have your own content on demand from everything that's been existed before. For instance, you love the show Friends. The whole show is available for, you have all these actors from every angle, you have every line they've said, you have the script, you have every voice bit, and you could just say something as simple as like, make some more seasons of Friends. Or make more seasons of Friends, but now they're all vampires. and that would be possible. And it's not like it is in some ways, or like the script writing is already possible now. The voice cloning is 100% possible, especially with that much data that's available in, for instance, a whole series of a show. It would be perfect. And then, there'll be some catching up to do on the video side of it. But that was one where I really thought, I said, like, that'll be in 15 years. But that also brings up this weird thing of, like, if that's possible and you could watch everything you wanted exactly your way, content would be so individualized that you couldn't even talk about shows with people anymore, right?
Oh, true. Yeah.
You couldn't have water cooler Game of Thrones talk. Because you would be like, Game of Thrones?
She died 15 seasons ago. What are you
dragons? I don't like dragons, so there were no dragons in my House of Dragons. It's little cute little foxes.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
Right?
I love it.
Yeah.
What show would you be furthering?
Oh, I would look at shows where I didn't like how they ended, maybe.
Yeah.
And I would say we'll leave that season out and we'll go in a different direction, for instance.
Have you given it thought how that changes content, since you're also a content creator? How does this all change content? Like, I always feel like, what do we as humans still have to contribute? Like, that gets kind of smaller or shifts somewhere else, I feel like. How do you think about it?
Okay, I have opinions about this. So first of all, if we look back at TikTok, before it was TikTok, it was Musical.ly. What was it? It was a platform where mostly young people were lip syncing, which is they were creating content without the need to think about what they want to do or a creative idea or anything. It was like, all you have to do, and they made it even easy for you. It could sing it slower. All you had to do was do some movement, dance, and sing. And then that kind of evolved into what TikTok is now, which was you were doing, some people were doing individual creative content, and then it became trends. Like you were almost not even supposed to do an individual thing. Do something someone else did, do it that way. And in a way, I thought like it's kind of not the death, but the putting the brakes on creativity a little bit, because everyone's supposed to do the same thing, to the point where there was a recipe that went viral. And instead of that one video with the recipe going viral, people just recreated them creating the recipe, and then that would get views, and that just flabbergasted me because I didn't understand. Anyway, so AI content will also be taking over. I mean, so many people are already doing that, and there's just more and more ways to just kind of outsource that part. Like, you don't have to come up with the idea, you don't even have to do the script. The script can be spoken by an AI. Like, we're really at a point where some content are created. There's just gonna be in a way, too much content coming out. It's just kind of noise. That's an interesting concept. But the fact that there will be so many fully AI channels that are from a fully not real person to some will say that, you know, that'll be the gimmick, like, oh, it's complete AI. Some won't even be. There was like years ago, right? There was kind of scandals of these influencers that were just had
virtual influencers. Or?
No, not the virtual influencers. The ones that just had those like AR filters on, so they looked completely. It was like, for instance, a 40-year-old woman as a 20-year-old AI influencer, and then it was kind of like caught because of this or that, or the filter went down during the scream. So there'll be like the AI versions of these completely not real people that are owned by owned by companies, just putting those out, pushing kind of products. There'll be a lot of stuff happening in that space. Sorry if I drifted completely off from the question, but
where do you see humans playing a role there? So, for example, for me, information. We don't need to like tell anyone information. Like in the future, AI is gonna do that much faster, better. Like a news anchor, I don't know. Like, but where do you see humans adding value to content in an AI future?
I think then we do a hard overcorrection, maybe not overcorrection, but we do a hard correction back to AI art. You know, you look at for 1 second and you're like, and then someone's like, I painted this. And you're like, whoa, you put how much? A week? You did a week? You painted this for a week? Can I buy that from you? There's paint on here. You know, that becomes interesting again. That's already starting to happen. We value time. We value the human input. We start to value in the future people's real stories. I think to the point where, you know, before app dating, people met in the real world, and dating made that so easily. There was this huge rise of Tinder, Bumble, all those apps, and now I see, I don't know if this is 100% accurate in terms of the numbers, but I see a lot of chatter about the fact that it's, even if there are apps, they're all about making people meet in real life again. So it's about taking over a bar, or it's about people's own interests, like they want to meet someone in real life. So again, it kind of like overcorrects from this whole digital dating side. And I think that's also like, there's so much content, there's so much noise. Maybe people, I saw some not a study, but I saw a statistic about, what are the youngest ones called right now? The Gen Zs?
The Y, right?
Whatever, the very young ones right now, that they're going back to dumb phones, right? They're going back to non-smartphones, which shows that to me as well. It's sometimes it's maybe too much, and that can be the future again, like real interactions, or if it is verified online, like real people talking about their real life instead of doing AI content. I can see that being big as well.
You need to verify, hey, this is a real person talking. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I think we have a lot to add in terms of, you know, our emotions, our experience. As you said, that's nothing an AI can really have, or that can be significant for us, that if the AI says, oh, I've also went through puberty.
True.
No, you didn't, first of all, and second, you have no idea what it's like. And so there's obviously much to add, I think, in terms of content as well. but yeah, it will be interesting for sure. I think this has been going on for quite. It's so interesting to talk to you as always. I have two rounding out questions that I borrow from Tim Ferriss usually, and the first one is, where have you recently changed your mind? Where did you like rewire your hard drive or your program, where you say, I need to think differently about this, or maybe something just surprised you really in the AR space, AR, VR, or AI space, where you say, okay, I didn't think that was possible, and now all of a sudden, easy.
Okay, I'll focus on one thing you said about the AR space and being surprised, for instance. I recently looked back at how long AR has been a thing, and it's been, I think, very actively mainstream since 2016. So it's here since, what is that, 7 years?
Yeah.
And the fact that it's weirdly booming right now, because I remember over the years you've asked me sometimes about AR. You're like, how's that thing? Are brands still doing this as the thing? How is this interesting? You've asked very good questions about that stuff. And the fact that just right now I'm seeing it really take off, like content creators making a name for themselves in this space, and it's at some height that is interesting, because the technology, of course, it always gets better, but there hasn't been some like switch.
Okay.
And I think that is just something I reflect on and I find is interesting.
Do you have any conclusion why it's now? Like, just long enough,
Yeah, maybe sometimes things take a while, and it gets enough mass adoption and enough people, maybe that's it too, enough creators in that space, that it gets enough stuff is there to be seen and to be pushed from their side as well.
Yeah,
So
what I can also see is, like sometimes we talked about this earlier, you need this one killer app.
Yeah.
Or you need 1,000 little ones. Oh yeah, AR makes sense here. Augmented reality is nice here. It's here, and all of a sudden it's a sea of little drops.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, maybe that's the case.
Yeah, I could imagine it for that one. Yeah.
Okay. Last question, Benjamin. If you had a really big billboard, it's towering over Munich. We're in Munich right now. It's towering over the whole world. Who knows? And you could write a short message on it that you want to pass on to people. Can be related to your work, can be related to your private life. What would you like to pass on?
Oh man, I'll just put a big mirror up there so people have to look at themselves and decide, and reflect a little bit and say, am I doing the right thing? Am I being as kind as I can be? That kind of stuff. And if I think from a work angle, it would be something about, hey, I'm Ben and I do cool shit with XR and AI, and come have a conversation with me about it and see how I can help your business in terms of that tech, new tech, and helping you even with your workflows.
Love it. You're like, that's the American in you, because there is all those big billboards where this lawyer is, call me under 800. And
about how to get you money now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so that's a perfect ending. Why should people approach you? Who's the right person to approach you to work with you, and how do they do that online?
A great way is LinkedIn, Benjamin Desai, connected to Bernard Neumann. So.
Also in the show notes, let's do it.
Let's do it. And the other would be Instagram. That's where I show my personal projects, the new tests with technology. So definitely check me out on one of those platforms, and reach out to me if you're interested in new technologies, bringing new technologies into your business, learning. I also do consulting and workshops, so I can teach how to best use these new technologies, and bring me into where you need help, and technology can help you. I think that's a good one.
Love it. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you.